Good evening, everyone. We will begin our information session shortly. Glad that you are tuning in with us this evening. Again, welcome everyone. We will begin our session shortly. Welcome everyone. We will begin our session shortly. If you have any questions this evening, there is a phone number on the screen, 336-790-2421. You can text message your questions live to that number, and we will answer them at the end of the session. If you do need a Spanish translator, if you give the phone number 336-626-9980, we have a translator on the call that can translate this session for you. Welcome everyone. We will begin our information session for virtual learning shortly. Again, if you have questions, you can text them to us during the session. If you need a Spanish language translation, you can give the phone number on the screen a call. Welcome everyone. We will begin our session in just a few moments. This is our information session for Asheboro City Schools virtual learning, so we'll begin in just a moment. If you do need a Spanish translation, you can call 336-626-9980. We have a translator on the line for Spanish translations. Okay, it is just a couple minutes after the hour, so we are going to go ahead and begin our session. Hopefully you are here to learn more about our virtual learning program in Asheboro City Schools for the upcoming school year. I am going to try to speak a little slowly in that we do have a Spanish translator that is following along as we present. So we may be taking some pause between slides so that we can capture those translations. Okay, welcome everyone. This is our parent information session for Asheboro City Schools virtual learning for the 2021-22 school year. We do have a text line where you can text your questions and a line if you need Spanish translations. Following this session, we will be answering your questions, so feel free to text those questions to us at any time at 336-790-2421, and we will try to keep that number on the screen for you. We are live streaming on YouTube, and it looks like we have a fair number of attendees, so welcome everyone. We hope that we can answer your questions this evening. I would like to introduce my colleagues. I am Anthony Woodyard. I'm the Director of Technology for Asheboro City Schools. And with me, I have several of my colleagues. And if they don't mind, maybe they can unmute their mic and introduce themselves.
I'll go first. My name is Tondra Manning. I am a beginning teacher coordinator and curriculum specialist for Asheboro City Schools.
I am Barbara Skelly, the lead program specialist for the Exceptional Children's Program.
I am Sarah Beth Robbins, and I'm the Career and Technical Education Director for Asheboro City Schools.
Great, thank you everyone. We're here this evening to answer any questions you might have about our virtual learning program for next school year. As you know, we have offered virtual learning this school year called Access Ed to all of our students that needed an option for learning from home during the pandemic. And we're happy to say that we're going to continue a virtual learning program into the next school year. It will look a little different than our current Access Ed program, and we want to just go through some of those details of that program this evening. So what will virtual learning look like for next school year? We will continue to offer a remote learning experience, and we do plan for students to remain enrolled at their home schools. But something different is they will have a virtual learning teacher that's designated to teach an all virtual class of students. So you may be familiar that we have been offering a hybrid option where we have some students in class and we have other students that are attending class from home. So moving forward next school year, our plan is to have an option where every student enrolled in a virtual class would be enrolled with other virtual students. And a teacher isn't trying to balance teaching both in-person and remote students. So looking at our plans for our program next year, I'd like to preface it by saying that plans are still developing and there are still different details that we are still working on. So I'm going to share what we have in place at this time, and we will certainly be in communication with our families for with any additional information as it develops. So at this time, our program will be open to any student, kindergarten to 12th grade, with the exception of our dual language program. We do not have dual language teachers that can offer a virtual option in addition to having teachers that offer a remote or a face-to-face option. So a student enrolled in the dual language program would have to be only an in-person student. We do intend for our classes to be taught by Asheboro City Schools teachers or an approved third-party vendor. So we do have some partnerships with some other vendors, North Carolina Virtual Public School, Apex Learning. We're looking at some other options as well. It's very important to note that daily scheduling and grading standards are aligned with the same standards that we use for in-person instruction, and that we will be requiring daily attendance. So will be daily attendance checks. So it will be very important for your student to plan to be in attendance, even though they are remote, every day of school. We are still working on our final course offerings, but depending on demand and enrollment, there will be some secondary courses that may not be available for virtual learning. If we can take a moment and just review some of the requirements for a virtual learning student. Certainly those students need to be responsible, they need to be effective at communicating with their teachers, and they also need to be good time managers. This could be a skill that may be an older student you recognize in that student, or it may be a skill that needs some coaching with some of our younger students, with a caregiver that is able to help us in coaching that student so they can be successful in virtual learning. Especially with our elementary students, there are some responsibilities that the caregiver will need to take on, and that is that parents do need to monitor student progress, and they do need to communicate with the teachers. So it's going to be very important that our parents update with the school any changes in address, email, or phone number, because we're not seeing that student face to face on a daily basis. So we need to make sure we're able to connect with both the student and the parent on a regular basis for a virtual student.
Students that are AIG or academically gifted, EC or exceptional children, and EL or English language students are all eligible to enroll in our virtual learning program. Our AIG specialists will collaborate with the remote teachers to provide AIG services with appropriate differentiation through enrichment, extension, and acceleration as needed with regular meetings. Differentiation might also be offered through flexible virtual lessons with AIG specialists during enrichment periods. For EC and students with active 504 plans, there will be an individualized education plan meeting or a 504 committee meeting to determine based on your child's unique plans and unique needs in regards to their participation in the virtual program.
As far as technology is concerned, devices will be provided to participating students. We do insist on consistent internet access on the student's part within their learning workspace. Our younger students use iPads, and students from second, third grade through 12th grade use Chromebooks. There are limited hotspots available, and also in the case of an emergency, we do have some community park and learn options, but again, consistent internet access will be required for the student's learning workspace. The workspace is very important. As you can tell, we need to be able to hear and see our students. The learning management system is just a system where teachers are able to provide work, and that's how students access their assignments as well as how they submit their assignments. High school students typically use Canvas, and then students in kindergarten through 8th grade typically use Google Classroom. Both of these options have parent observation capabilities. This is also a way you can check student grades. So virtual learning requires full semester commitment. So full semester commitment is required again. Assignments will be graded, and it is graded on mastery, not just completion, but how well that student has mastered that skill. Live instruction with Asheboro City Schools teachers or an approved third-party vendor like Apex or NCBPS will take place every day. And again, as Mr. Woodyard stated, daily attendance is taken during the regular school day. And we feel like virtual learning is appropriate because it is still an option for those with concerns around coronavirus or other health concerns. Virtual learning is not the same as our current Access Ed. Students, again, must commit to virtual or in person. Only an option for those students virtual learning is not only an option for those students that excel academically. It is for a variety of different students. Virtual learning is not only pre-recorded videos or PowerPoints. Again, there will be live instructions that students are expected to participate in. And it is not a totally flexible schedule. Students will have to follow the schedule of the school set for that virtual learning schedule.
So as we look forward, we would like to make you aware of our next steps. So families do need to submit an interest form online. We have that form on our website at asheboro.k12.nc.us. And you can go to our website and easily complete that form. If you need to complete a paper copy of the form, you can certainly do that here at our central office, and we can accommodate that for you. We do ask that you submit your form by next Monday, April 26th. That will be so that we can maximize student placement and schedule options. It also allows us to do any final planning that we need to do to accommodate students in the virtual learning. And but that form will still be available on our website after April 26th. We will have a waiting list because it is likely there may be spots available in certain grade levels or in certain courses. And if that is the case, then we can still honor some of those requests submitted after April 26th. We have released an online frequently asked questions. And so we do ask that you review those, and we are finalizing a program handbook. And so those documents are on our website as well. And we will continue to update those documents as our plans continue to develop and we have more information for our families. We will continue to keep those documents up to date. There will be a mandatory orientation session for families, both parents and students. We will offer that session in early August, so we will want you to be aware now that if you do have a virtual learning student, you will need to attend that orientation session. And then we do always ask you to stay in contact with your child's school. If you need any additional information, then that is your first point of contact, is at your child's school. Again, that interest form is on our website, so we do ask that you go ahead and complete that form. Again, we're talking a little slow because we do have a translator on the line, but we are accepting your text questions. So please text your questions to 336-790-2421. And we do have a translator translating, and we do have a translator translating those questions as well. So at this time, we do want to answer some questions that have come through to our text line. And so I'm going to open the floor to my colleagues here if we have any questions that have come in that they would like to address.
I will start. We have a question. Can you switch from Access Ed to in-person learning later in the year? Again, we're going to retire the Access Ed and we're going to call this virtual learning moving forward. And we do ask that families commit to a semester, at least a semester of learning. So a transition to in-person would have to occur, typically would occur at that semester break.
Okay, we do have another question that has come in regarding, can students do partial virtual learning? For example, can they do band in person and then do other classes remotely? That is a difficult question to answer. This is our inaugural year, our first year of offering a fully virtual program. So our preference is certainly for that student to be either all virtual or all in person. So certainly I will say there might be some special cases where we could make some accommodations, but that would certainly be a case by case basis. But for the most part, a student would be all virtual or a student would be all in person.
And there was also a question about being able to do virtual and in person. So Mr. Woodyard just answered that this year we do want people to commit at this time. We're saying fully virtual or fully in person. And there was also a question about a particular class. Will Mandarin be offered? And this also connects with what Mr. Woodyard just stated. We will have to make decisions based on what interest lies, what courses will be available at that time.
And I'll add to that, with some of our third-party vendors, there may be some options for offering some courses like Mandarin, but it would just depend on the availability of those courses and the enrollment as scheduling comes about. But you can certainly reach out to the school as we start scheduling students to get more information.
There is a question about how will CTE classes work. Honestly, it's going to depend a little bit on numbers and registration. There will be a lot of CTE classes that will not be available to Access Ed students because we are asking that students the families choose either fully virtual or fully on campus. But there will be some that we will offer, especially within our business and marketing program area. There are also some that are offered through those third-party vendors that Mr. Woodyard has talked about. So there will be some options through those as well, through NCBPS and Apex as well.
I see a question that says, will the orientation sessions in August be in person or virtual? We will likely offer both. Probably an in-person option because there may be a need to pick up some curriculum materials or other things to start the school year. And then a virtual option on that session would be likely as well.
I see a question, if my student needs a tutor, how will that work? Your student will be with their classroom teacher. Their classroom is just virtual. So they will have the opportunity to get intervention and tutoring help based on that teacher's office hours and availability, which will be during a school day or shortly thereafter at the end of the day. How in-person students also receive tutoring sometimes after school. So they will still have the opportunity to connect with their teacher to get extra supports.
And Ms. Manning, if I may add to that, if your student has an individualized education plan or IEP or a 504 plan, that is why those are determined on a case-by-case basis so that we can make sure your child's unique learning needs and unique plans, accommodations, and modifications can be met in a virtual learning program.
There's a question about AP classes being offered through virtual learning for those students who are enrolled in those classes for next year. Again, that will depend on the interest of students who apply, as well as availability, possibly through third-party vendors like NCVPS and their availability.
And just one thing to communicate here, we do anticipate that course options in virtual learning for next year will certainly be more limited than options that we can offer face-to-face. So that is going to be very important for families to understand as we start doing student scheduling for next school year. As the program grows, then obviously those course options would grow from year to year as well. There's also a question, if we sign up now, can we back out? So we are working on schedules. So if you are interested, the form that you are submitting is merely an interest form. So yes, if you are interested, go ahead and complete that interest form so that we capture that. And then as we work through the scheduling process with you, then you will certainly have the option of making a determination as to whether virtual learning is the option that you want to choose for your child. There's another question regarding filling out some forms, a transportation form or a child nutrition form. Even if you might want to be a virtual student next year, again, I would certainly complete forms by their deadline, and we can always make adjustments on our end if a student's enrollment status changes. We can certainly make those adjustments. But as those forms are due, make sure that you do have those submitted if your status is still uncertain. So there is another question. It says, if you need virtual learning as things are now, but in August something changes and you want to switch to in-person learning, is that possible? Can that student be enrolled before the semester begins? We do start scheduling students now based on their enrollment choices. And so just as a new student would join our school district in August, we would certainly try to accommodate those changes, but scheduling options do become much tighter as we get closer to the beginning of the school year. And so it would certainly be to your advantage to make that choice as early as possible so that scheduling is as open as possible in doing so.
There is a question about indicating secondary courses may not all be available. Does that refer to high school courses, or are there classes in middle school that may not be available remotely next year? And to answer that question, when we say secondary, we are indicating from sixth grade through 12th grade. There may be some classes also in middle school that may not be available remotely next year.
Another question states, can my child participate in sports? And so the answer to that is yes, as long as your child is meeting the participation standards for middle and high school. Those are listed in our FAQ document. But if your child is meeting those participation and academic standards, then your child would still be able to participate in sports or clubs. Another question, are there plans for virtual learning to be available for additional years beyond next school year? We do envision this as a program that will continue to grow in Asheboro City Schools. And so as referenced earlier, we may have a limited number of courses available this coming year, and we hope to be able to grow the program year after year. So at this time, our plans would be to continue the program.
There's a question, if my child is sick, who would contact at the school? And your first point of contact will be the classroom teacher. Just that teacher that normally takes the attendance will be the one that you will need to contact to let that person know that the student is not able to join due to illness.
We do still have a number of people on the call, so if you do have additional questions, please direct those to us. We will stay on the call for a few more minutes just to make sure that we have captured all of your questions. We will also add these questions to our frequently asked questions document so that they will be answered for you on our website. So you can certainly go back and reference that document to find written responses to these questions. So we do have another question that came in. Is this program only in response to COVID? So the short answer for that is no. We do recognize that COVID is still a consideration in this program for next year, but we do intend for it to be an addition to our Asheboro City Schools enrollment options for continuing years. We certainly do plan, if possible, to continue this. And just a reminder that we are in the midst of planning all the details, and so some of the things that we share today unfortunately are subject to change. So as they do change, we will make those changes on our website. So we do ask you to understand that. Do you expect the schedule to be similar to this year's Access Ed schedule? The short answer for that is probably not, because we will have dedicated virtual learning teachers and sections. The schedule will vary quite a bit from the schedule that a student may have had this year. So it will certainly be based on the enrollment of students in that grade level or in that section. So as soon as we have that information on the daily schedules, we will certainly share that with our families. But the schedules will be built based on the enrollment.
And just to add to what Mr. Woodger just stated, we will follow state guidelines in terms of number of hours of instruction that are needed. So students must anticipate having a full school day, whether they are in live instruction or doing independent work.
There's another question regarding in-person learning, which I feel that we can answer, although not related to our virtual program. And that is, do you anticipate there being A and B days for in-person learning next year? And at this time, we do not anticipate A and B days for next school year.
There's a question, will you still use Google Meet or another app for Meet? We are a Google Apps for Education school district, and we intend to continue to use Google Meet as the platform for video conferencing.
I will add to that briefly in saying that as we continue to use Google Meet, we are evaluating other instructional tools for our teachers that would enhance those virtual learning sessions so that there can potentially be more interactivity and other things as we move forward with this particular program.
And I'll also add that some of our third-party use, like NCVPS, may use a different platform, but that is typically in the high school level, that they may have a different platform.
There is another question regarding field trips. So would my child be able to participate if they are in the ACS virtual program? Certainly our intent would be for all of our students to have opportunities to participate in any sort of special events or special trips. And it might even be possible that a virtual class would organize something of that nature. So to the fullest extent possible, we would want all of our students to have opportunities to participate in enrichment activities such as a field trip. There is a question regarding assignments and their due dates. That will certainly vary based on the individual teacher and the potentially even the number of students in their class. But there will be some sort of daily attendance. So that, again, going back to the attendance, that daily attendance is important. And in some cases, that daily attendance may be measured in the form of an independent assignment. So that would be clearly defined by your child's teacher as to when assignments are due. Okay, it appears that our questions are slowing down and we have answered our questions as they have come in. So we certainly appreciate your time with us this evening. Do check our website for any additional information. Also, reference our website to complete the interest form. And certainly be aware that we will be sharing more information with you as it develops.
Mr. Woodyard, there's another question that if we need copies of assignments made, will the school provide that for us? And absolutely any materials needed will be provided.
As we mentioned earlier, we do want a diverse group of students participating in virtual learning. So just as we make accommodations for our students in person, we want to be able to offer a similar learning experience to our virtual students. Okay, there are a couple more questions that have come in. So another is, will the teacher be teaching live as in this year? And the short answer to that is yes. There will be live synchronous instruction as part of the instructional program, as well as some recorded or non-live independent work as part of the program as well. So it will be very important to receive that communication from your child's teacher as to what that schedule looks like. Another question has to do with in-person events such as science fairs. Will that change with virtual learning? As we move forward with planning any of our events, we will certainly evaluate the best delivery method for those events. In some cases, we may be able to continue offering virtual events. In other cases, we may be able to offer in-person events. And always evaluating what is safe and best for our families. So we will continue to evaluate that as we start planning events for next school year. Okay, I will just ask my colleagues, any closing thoughts, anything that we need to cover before we wrap up our session today? All right, thank you all very, very much for your time.
Another question, sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Woodyard, another question is coming in.
So it appears this question has to do with class size. Will class size be limited in number of students? We certainly do have limits on class size, and we will follow state guidance so that we are meeting all state mandates as far as class size. So just know that regardless of whether it's a face-to-face or remote class, we will follow that guidance on what that class size might look like. If there are additional questions that come in following this session, we will certainly answer those in our frequently asked questions document. So again, I encourage you to reference that on our site as we update it over the next few days. Again, our enrollment or our interest form is open and live on our website at this time. So if you do have continuing interest in our virtual learning program, then visit our website to complete that form. Thank you everyone for your time this evening. We appreciate you being a part of our Asheboro City Schools community, and we continue to want to be the best school system that we can be. So we certainly appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We are going to end our live stream at this time, and do check our frequently asked questions document if you did have a late question coming in that we weren't able to answer. So do check that document. Thank you, everyone.